why do you choose to believe the Bible? We hear that question, and usually we'll say something like, well, I believe the Bible because I was raised like that. Well, bless your spirit if that's your answer. But please, don't go out of here and say that to anybody. I beg you, please don't do that. There is another answer with which we have become accustomed that we think is a great answer to the question, and it goes something like this. Why do you choose to believe the Bible? Well, I choose to believe the Bible because I tried it and it worked for me. We say that and then we sort of back up a couple of steps, kind of let the answer sit there. Like we really just did something. Let me give you an answer to that question. I choose to believe the Bible because it's a reliable collection of historical documents written down by eyewitnesses during the lifetime of other eyewitnesses. They report to us supernatural events that took place in fulfillment of specific prophecies and claim that their writings are divine rather than human in origin. Oh, I hear you. You're well-educated people. You've heard the arguments. Yes, brother, I understand that, but you see what happened was there were individuals who came and doctored the Bible up, and it's been translated so many times, and it's been changed so many times. And when I talk to college students sometimes, they tell me about this myth of these overzealous monks who went out and changed the Bible so that things would match up, so that it would look like we have older documents than we actually have. And in fact, and I think they're really telling me something when they tell this, we don't have any of the originals. When we're talking about just the New Testament itself, there are over 6,000 manuscripts or portions of manuscripts for the New Testament itself. Now, that may not sound like a lot to you, but can I compare it to a couple of things? Julius Caesar's Gallic Wars. That's how we know about Julius Caesar and his conquest. We have around 10 manuscripts. Aristotle's Poetics. We have nearly 5 manuscripts. When it comes to the writings of Herodotus, we have less than 10 manuscripts. When it comes to the writings of Homer, less than 10 of each of his writings. When it comes to the New Testament, we have 6,000 manuscripts or portions of manuscripts for the New Testament. Folks, that's not even close. Well, you don't have the originals. No, we really don't. But guess what? We can get earlier than AD 120 with some of the copies that we have. When it comes to Julius Caesar's Gallic Wars, the earliest thing we can put our hands on was written 900 years after the original. But nobody's tearing down the walls in college because they're reading Caesar. When it comes to Aristotle, the earliest thing we can put our hands on was written 1,400 years after the original. But when it comes to the New Testament, we can put our hands on documents that were written within decades of the originals. So if these overzealous monks wanted to doctor the Bible, what they would have to do is find over 6,000 manuscripts, change all of them, not show their ink work, get them all back where they stole them from, and never tell anybody what they did. That's just level number one. Here's level number two. Jesus said, go and make disciples of ta ethne, every people group. Funny thing about people groups, they tend to speak different languages. So within the first few centuries, we have the Bible translated into Syriac, Coptic, and Latin. So now these overzealous monks have to find 6,000 Greek manuscripts, change those, doctor them up, don't show your ink work, get them back, go find all the Syriac, Coptic, and Latin translations of those Greek manuscripts, change those to match the lies that you told in another language, and get those back where you stole them from. And that's just level number two. Now you got level number three. The early church fathers had this terrible habit of writing commentary on the New Testament. So much so that Bruce Metzger argues, if all we had of the New Testament was the quotations and citations by the early church fathers, we could reproduce over 95% of the New Testament just from their writings. So now these overzealous monks have to find 6,000 manuscripts and portions of manuscripts, steal them, change them, don't show your ink work, get it back without anybody finding out. They got to find Syriac, Coptic, and Latin translations, change those to match the lies that they told in the 6,000 manuscripts, get those back where they stole them from, and then find all of the writings of all of the early church fathers, change those to match the lies that they told 2 layers ago, get those put back, never tell anybody what they did, and never ever get caught. Help you if you believe that. They report to us supernatural events. One of my favorites, Jesus tells the disciples, y'all go over to the other side of the lake, I'll meet you. Later on the boat, somebody, I don't know who, they say, hey, did Jesus say how he was coming? No, why? Because he coming. Or my favorite of them all, Friday, dead, Sunday, risen. They report to us supernatural events, and those events took place in fulfillment of specific prophecies. For example, when Jesus is on the cross, Psalm number 22, verse 1, my God, why have you forsaken me? Look at verse 6. I'm a worm and not a man, a reproach of men and despised by the people. All who see me sneer at me. They separate with the lip. They wag the head saying, commit yourself to the Lord. Let him deliver him. Let him rescue him because he delights in him. Sound familiar? That's what's being said to Jesus while he's being crucified. Look at verse 12. Many bulls have surrounded me. Strong bulls of Bashan have encircled me. They open wide their mouth at me as a ravening and roaring lion. I'm poured out like water. All my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax. It is melted within me. Interesting. Pierce him in the side, puncture the pericardium, blood and water rush out. Look at verse 15. My strength is dried up like potsherd and my tongue cleaves to my jaws. How about this wine vinegar on this sponge, Jesus? Because you did say I thirst. Verse 16. Dogs have surrounded me. Folks, that's Gentiles. A band of evildoers has encompassed me. One on the right and one on the left. They pierce my hands and my feet. I can count all of my bones. Why? Because nobody had to break your legs to hasten your death. They divide my garments among them, and for my clothing they cast lots. Folks, that was written 1,000 years before Jesus was born. It was written by a man who never once saw crucifixion in his life because crucifixion had not yet been invented. Is what's written reliable? Is it internally consistent? Is it corroborated? Well, what's corroboration? I don't know, maybe 3 languages, Greek, Hebrew, Aramaic, 3 continents, Asia, Africa, Europe, over 40 authors, most of whom never met one another, who wrote over a period of some 1,500 years and tell one singularly woven together story. How's that for corroboration? You see, we have no external evidence that would argue against the Bible's claim to be the Word of God. None. So the real intelligent thing to do is to believe what it says. I choose to believe the Bible because it's a reliable collection of historical documents written down by eyewitnesses during the lifetime of other eyewitnesses. They report supernatural events that took place in fulfillment of specific prophecies and claim that their writings are divine rather than human in origin. And by the way, if you want to, you can put some gravy on top of it. I tried it. Worked for me.